Hello Weekend Warriors, welcome back to the workshop. Today's video is a redo. A couple of weeks ago I posted a video on making cribbage pins. Well, I took a look at the video and I had to agree with a couple of people that didn't like it in the fact that the video quality was poor and you couldn't actually see any detail in what I was doing, so we're going to do it all over again. So, a couple weeks before that, we made a cribbage box. You can't have a complete cribbage box without the pins so you can play the game. So we're going to make the pins all over again. But let's take a look and see what a pin is supposed to look like. Here is a typical set of pins I make for cribbage boards when I make them. Now, there's nothing really fancy about them. Each one is about 1 1/8 inches long. Of course, I paint them different colors, 3 lanes, so you get 3 pins, 9 pins per set. Different colors that I paint with nail polish. And on one end, I usually put some knobs that, number one, they're decoration. Number two, they give you something to grab hold of when you're trying to pull them out of a tight pinhole on the board. In this case, you're not going to have that problem, but I'm still going to put the knobs on. And I make these out of 8-penny nails. I mean, just your typical Home Depot, go buy them and cut them up 8-penny nails. You can get 2 pins per nail. Yeah, so there's not too much else to say about it other than going and making them. Stand by. What I have here is my Shop Fox mini-lathe. It's a little wood lathe with a lathe chuck screwed onto it. It's got adjustable speed, so I can adjust the speed I'm going depending on which operation I'm doing here. But you can see that this is nothing fancy. It's just a tiny little lathe. I think it's $140 online these days. Anyway, so we're going to start with this, and we'll go ahead to the close-up view, and we'll move on with this. So here we go. Here I've got a nail all chucked up into my lathe. You can see that I've laid down some black cloth to minimize the amount of glare that is coming up, which kills the detail. That's what killed the other video. And for contrast's sake, I also ran a Sharpie around this half. This is 1 1/8 inches long, and I just happen to have the nail point sticking out to start with. And you can see this nail point isn't round. It's spear-shaped. It's got 4 flats. Now, for the purpose of making uniform pegs, I don't want those flats. So I'm going to take file and file those away while it's running on the lathe. That will make sure I get a nice round shape to it. And yeah, it's not going to be the classic file mark. So I am ready to get started on that. Okay, the whole idea here is to not have any flats left when I'm done. So I'm going to take a look at it, and you can see, let's get my finger in there so we get some contrast again. No flats. But there is a pretty sharp end, and I don't like sharp ends going into my wooden cribbage board because, you know, some players get a little aggressive and shove a little bit too hard. So I'm going to round that down a little bit more. Now, you don't have to use a lathe to do this sort of thing. A hand drill mounted so it doesn't get out of whack, you know, so you can use it like it's a lathe. And I've shown a couple of different fixtures in past videos, and we're going to pull one of those out and take a look at it. But the good part about using a lathe, especially this mini lathe that I'm using right now, is it's a lot quieter. Okay, now I've got a nice blunted tip on it. I'm not drawing any blood even though I'm pushing in here. So now I'm going to take a little bit finer file. I'm going to remove some of the machine marks we just put into that guy. And you can see this nail isn't perfectly straight, yet when I'm done with it, it's going to look just fine. Okay, so that should be about enough of that. Now it's time to polish up this end. And for that, I got a couple pieces of sanding cloth around here somewhere. So we'll start with one that's a little bit coarser, or a little bit more coarse, however you ought to say it. Okay, now it's time to move on to the back end. Okay, now let's move back up. Oh, you will notice that I've already put a magnet onto my tool rest, and you can see a pin that I already made sitting there drying with the red nail polish on it. This is just a little flat bar magnet. It's rare earth, of course, and it allows me to put the pins off to the side while the polish dries on the colored portion, and work on another pin. All right. On this one, you can see that it's got a pretty jagged edge here. Let's zoom back in a little bit. There we go. We got kind of a jagged edge here from where the lineman's pliers cut the nail. So we want to get rid of that first. We're going to flatten that out, and then we're going to put in the knobs at the top. I think 3 of them today. I think I got enough material sticking out there. And then we'll color it. So the first thing I need to do is file that down. I'm going to move the tool rest back out of the way again a little bit. Doesn't take very much to get that nice and flat. And then we're going to chamfer the very end of it a little bit, kind of turn it into a little ball. Okay, once again, use the finer file. All right, so now you can see that that ridge is gone. No more cutting my finger on the end of that. No matter what direction I go. So now I'm going to move the tool rest back up a bit. And bring it up a little bit more. I don't want it touching, but I don't want it too far away either. Nor do I want it touching my chuck. It's fun trying to work around the tripod too. There we go. Now, using the tool rest, I'm going to start the file up on the tool rest and bring it down onto the to the workpiece. And I'm going to at least give myself 3 starter grooves. Now, there are couple of different ways to make these grooves, and I'm going to show you each one. Well, I'm going to show you 2 of them right now, and then I'll show you the 3rd here in a minute. And I'm just eyeballing the position on these. Doesn't take a lot. Now, the first, I can just continue making the cut using the file. Just going to use the same edge of the triangular file here and cut into it. And you can see I get a pretty decent little groove there. But it's going to have the angle of the triangular file. So what's that, 30 degree on each side? Okay, another way to do it, which I did not demonstrate the last time, was using a hacksaw blade. And of course, we want to make sure the teeth are going the right direction here. You want to be pushing forward. All right, and that's, since you already got a starter groove, it's just a matter of laying the blade down into that groove and not screwing up like I just did. Obviously, I didn't cut a deep enough groove in there. Okay, I probably only scratched the surface a little bit, so I'm going to continue with what I'm doing, and then I'll polish that out with the sanding cloth. But if you get a good start, it doesn't take very long to make your cut. And I'll repeat it on this one too. Oh, we'll touch this one up a little bit too. There we go. All right, now it's time to get that smoothed out and polished up. Whoops. Basho, he said. All right, we're going to reposition that guy. And now we'll turn that off and get you a fairly decent look at the final product here. All right, it's not the final product yet because we still have to color it, so we know what lane it belongs in. And for that, I'm just going to use some cheapo nail polish that my daughter was going to toss out, and said, no, yeah, I can use that in the workshop. So these are going to be red, as you see. So shake the stuff up and get the lathe back up and running. And while I'm at it here, maybe just another coat. Sometimes it needs it, sometimes it doesn't. Okay. I dropped my chuck pins again. Okay, so I got it broken loose, and now I'm going to use my needle nose pliers to pull it out of the chuck, and then lay it down to dry and wipe. So now let's do the other way, which is using some machines. And while we're at it, we'll switch out to the drill using a jig. Hang on. So if you don't have a lathe, you can use one of these guys. From a couple years back, I did a couple of videos on bottle craft, and this is the bottle cutting and polishing jig from those videos. And of course, the plans for this are already available on the website. So if you don't have a lathe and you want to make your own pins, or you need something that clamps a drill into place nice and firmly, well, this is the jig for you. And like I said, free plans already up on the website. Anyway, we're going to make one more cribbage pin using this jig, and this time, instead of using hand files, we are going to use the DeWalt drill and my Win rotary cutting tool. It's just like a Dremel, but it's made by a different company. So if you got a Dremel, same thing. I'm using the cutoff wheel on that and the grinding wheel on the cordless drill. All right, so let me set up the other close-up camera so we can get a good look at this, and we'll go. Oh, one thing I didn't do in the last video, the one that we're replacing, whoops, let me get my thumb out of this, is this. This is just a block of wood set all the way across that is a tool rest. I tried to freehand it, and I slipped off a couple of times and you know, had to do some work. Well, this time we actually put the tool rest in place. Okay, now let's go get the other camera. All right, you can see I've got my nailed piece hooked up. This is a centerpiece, so there's no tip on it yet. I've done the Sharpie thing again, so you get the detail. We might get a little bit more vibration because this setup is a little bit more shaky than with a lathe. So if you get a little bit of shake, don't worry, you'll get a clear picture when we're done. So it's time to get going. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to shape in a tip using my DeWalt cordless drill and the grinding bit here. And once again, underneath this black cloth, I've got a tool rest, so I'm not going to be slipping off and all that good kind of stuff. I'm going to be able to get up under here and set my angle, and it's just going to take a second. And there you go. You can see same kind of angle as when I did it with the files. It's still not drawing any blood, so that's a good thing. Now some polishing up on this, and then we'll turn it around. It doesn't take a lot, as you see. Okay, now it's time to turn it around. 0. All right, got it turned around. My tip's on the other end. This is going to end up getting squared off, and then I'm going to cut the nubs in. I should mention that this bit with using the grinding bit and the cutoff wheel on the Dremel, which is what we're going to use right now. This is the method I use when I usually sit down to do these, because when I'm making cribbage pegs, I'm generally doing 5, 6, 7 sets at a time. So you want to step up the action a little bit here. All right, so first, once again, going to square it off, and then we're going to cut the nubs in. There we go. I can let that dry in place, and we're pretty well good to go. All right, we're all done again. We made ourselves cribbage pegs. I got a set of red now. I still need to make another set of blue and another set of green, just so I have them on hand for the next cribbage board I build. But in this project, we saw you can go with all the big toys, or you can do the same thing with the basics, just a drill, something to mount it in, and some files, and maybe even a hacksaw blade. It's a fun project. it adds on to projects we've already done. And what else can you say? All right, we're going to get back on track. I'm going to, at some point, get to the box with miter joints that we're going to build for all my Shopsmith attachments. And then we're going to get back and do something interesting with screen printing. So y'all stay tuned. More videos coming. Until then, y'all keep up the good fight, and I'll see you next time. Bye.